My name is Rachel Dwyer, and I learned the hard way that being the good sister only makes you the easiest target. You want to know how I got revenge? I stood at my brother's rehearsal dinner, locked eyes with his smug fiancée, and calmly said, "Cancel the wedding gift. The $1 million house." Her fork froze midair. I watched her face crumble as her dream future vanished in front of 30 stunned guests. Now tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments because this one's for anyone who's ever been betrayed by the people they loved most. The first time I met Monica, my brother's fiancée, it was over dinner at our childhood home in Asheville, North Carolina. I had baked a pear and goat cheese tart that afternoon, something nostalgic from our childhood summers, but I might as well have set fire to the dining table, the way Monica looked at it. She eyed the dish, then me. "Oh," she said, slowly dragging out the syllable. "I thought you'd be more refined." The silence at the table was instant. I smiled, tight as piano wire. "Guess your expectations will have to adjust." Ben, my younger brother by 3 years and the person I used to share late-night cereal runs with, shifted in his chair like he'd rather be anywhere else. Our mother gave a polite little laugh, clearly trying to smooth things over. "Rachel's a creative soul. Always has been." Monica tilted her wine glass, assessing the color of the Pinot like she was born with a vineyard under her feet. "Oh, she's creative. A photographer, right?" She said the word like it tasted sour. I nodded. "Yes, a working photographer. I run my own studio in Black Mountain, specialize in families, weddings, some editorial work." Monica blinked slowly, a smile stretching across her face that didn't touch her eyes. "Interesting, so, not real journalism then." Ben tried to change the subject, fumbling to ask Dad about the new porch repairs, but it was too late. Something in me had already curled inward. My chest tightened, but I stayed quiet for a moment, letting her words linger, letting everyone at the table feel how they landed. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Don't disrespect me in my own family's house," I said, calm, controlled, but my voice carried. Ben dropped his fork with a soft clink. "Rachel, come on." "No," I cut in, not taking my eyes off Monica. "She came in here swinging like it's a test. I passed, she failed." Monica let out a soft scoff, setting her napkin down. "I didn't mean to offend, I just expected someone, I don't know, more polished, given how much Ben talks about you." "Polished doesn't mean phony," I shot back. A long silence followed. Dad cleared his throat and muttered something about the weather. Monica went back to her wine, but the mood had shifted. Ben glanced between us, torn. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I could see him calculating the cost of standing up for me, and deciding, at least for tonight, to stay out of it. I knew then this wouldn't be a short story. Monica wasn't just rude, she was strategic. A polished storm wearing pearl earrings and a permanent smirk. And I was the woman who once promised her baby brother that she'd always have his back, even if he forgot. Later that night, long after Monica had gone to bed, barely offering me a nod goodnight, Ben found me outside on the porch swing. The late September air had that gentle chill Asheville always gets when summer starts giving in. I had a throw blanket over my knees, a mug of cooling chamomile tea in my hands, and a tightness in my chest I hadn't quite shaken off since dessert. The porch creaked under his weight as he sat beside me. He didn't speak right away, just stared out at the moonlight catching the tops of the maple trees we used to climb as kids. "I didn't know she was going to say all that," he finally said. His voice was soft but not weak. Still my baby brother in that moment. I didn't look at him. "You also didn't stop her." "I should've, you're right." That surprised me enough to glance over. His shoulders were slouched, hands loosely clasped between his knees. I recognized the gesture. It was the same way he used to sit outside Mom and Dad's room when he got in trouble as a kid. Quiet, waiting to be forgiven. "She's nervous about the wedding," he continued, a weak attempt at excuse. "About impressing everyone. She doesn't always come across the way she means to." "She came across just fine," I said evenly. "That was all intentional, Ben. She sized me up and decided to make a play. That wasn't nerves, that was a warning." He frowned. "A warning?" I sighed, turning my body to face him more fully. "You don't see it yet, but you will. She wants to be the center of gravity, and I don't orbit easily." Ben rubbed a hand down his face. "She's intense, but she loves me. I don't doubt that she loves the idea of you." He winced, and I hated how quickly guilt crept up my throat. I didn't come out here to hurt him, I just needed the air, the space, the clarity to remember who I was before someone walked into my home and decided I wasn't enough. "I'm sorry," I muttered. "That was harsh." He shook his head. No, I need honesty, you've always given me that. A long pause settled between us. Crickets hummed. In the distance, a dog barked once, then quieted. I still want you at the wedding, Ben said after a while. I know tonight was awkward, but it'll mean the world to me if you're there. I stared at him. Really stared. His jaw was clenched. He was bracing himself, expecting rejection, but I'd made him a promise a long time ago, one I never planned to break. You remember that day on the Blue Ridge Trail? You were what, 13? I said. He blinked. When I twisted my ankle and refused to cry, I smiled. Yeah. You tried so hard to be tough. He grinned faintly. And you piggybacked me down the trail for over a mile. You were barely 100 pounds soaking wet, I laughed. We both fell into a quiet, nostalgic silence. You remember what I told you that day? I asked. Ben's expression sobered. That you'd always make sure I had a home, that I'd never have to go through life alone. I nodded. I meant it. His head dropped slightly, shoulders shaking just a bit. God, Ratch, you've always been there. And I've been so caught up in Monica and wedding plans, I haven't said thank you in forever. I leaned my shoulder against his. You don't have to, I know. No, he said, turning toward me. I do. His voice caught. You're the best sister anyone could ask for. That's when I told him. I've been working with my lawyer, I said. Getting the Black Mountain house ready, paperwork, title, all of it. His brows pulled together. What do you mean? I'm adding your name to the deed. I want to give you the house as a wedding gift. Ben sat up straight, stunned. Wait, what? I want you and your future family to have something stable, safe, a place that doesn't just come with a mortgage but with memories and love built into the walls. Rachel, are you serious? I nodded, heart pounding a little. I had been planning to surprise him at the rehearsal dinner, maybe even wrap the deed in a ribbon. But tonight, after what happened, it felt more important to say it plainly. No theatrics. Just truth. His eyes shimmered in the dim porch light. I don't know what to say. Just promise me you'll protect what matters, I said quietly. Not just the house, but the people who believe in you most. He nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks now. And for a brief, flickering moment, I thought maybe we were going to be okay. The next few months passed in a blur of signatures, emails, and careful coordination. I'd never bought a house for someone else before, not really. But I'd spent years turning my Mountain View property into something worth passing on. The wraparound porch alone had taken 2 summers to refurbish, plank by plank, and the kitchen still smelled like the lavender oil I rubbed into the wood cabinets after each deep clean. Giving it away didn't feel like losing something. It felt like fulfilling a promise. I want him to start his family in a home filled with love, I told Erin, my assistant, while she helped me organize the files one afternoon. That house has good bones. It deserves to hold good people. Erin raised an eyebrow as she scanned a document. You sound like a real estate poet, I chuckled. What can I say? Homes matter to me, maybe because ours growing up was the only safe place I knew. She nodded, her teasing gone. You're really giving it to him. Not just giving, I said. Transferring, officially. I've got my attorney drawing up the deed papers now. Ben's name will be right there beside mine. I didn't add what I was also doing, planning to sign my portion over after the wedding. It felt too personal to explain the depth of what that meant, that I trusted my brother enough to give him something permanent, that I believed, somehow, despite Monica's cold smile and the knots in my gut, that love would hold it all together. I had everything timed perfectly. The realtor was finalizing the valuation, just for formality, since I wasn't selling. The attorney had the title transfer prepped for signature. I even asked the florist to prepare a small bouquet of hydrangeas and wild asters for the rehearsal dinner table. Monica liked pristine orchids. I liked things with roots that lasted through hard winters. The plan was simple. After dinner, I'd pull Ben aside, hand him the envelope with the deed, and say, "It's yours. A wedding gift from me to your future." But I couldn't help imagining Monica's reaction. I kept trying to picture a version of the moment where she smiled, genuinely, and thanked me. But every version I ran in my mind ended the same way. Her lips tight, her eyes cold, her hand possessively slipping around Ben's arm like a shield, like a warning. I tried not to dwell on it. Instead, I poured myself into the final steps. Erin double-checked the notarized paperwork. I called the housekeeper to do a pre-cleaning before I handed over the keys. I even left a note tucked in the kitchen drawer for Ben, in my handwriting. May this house keep you safe, and may the walls always hear laughter before anything else. My attorney, Leslie, called the following week to confirm everything was moving forward. It'll be official the morning of the rehearsal dinner, she said. You want me to have the final documents couriered, or will you pick them up? I'll pick them up, I replied. It needs to be personal. And it did, because this wasn't just a gift. It was a statement, a message to Ben that no matter what distance life tried to put between us, I would always show up for him, even if I had to swallow my pride, even if I had to sit at a table and smile through Monica's subtle jabs and her calculated silences. This was bigger than any grudge, bigger than any cold shoulder or sharp look. This was about the foundation we built as kids, when he used to crawl into my room during thunderstorms and whisper, "If the roof blows off, hold my hand so we fly together." I remembered that always. So now I was building him a roof that wouldn't blow off, a place to weather the storms, even if I wasn't invited to stay under it. It was 1 week before the wedding when I made the call. I was sitting in the back garden of my studio, curled up in a faded Adirondack chair with a blanket over my lap and a glass of iced tea sweating beside me. Autumn was trying to take over Asheville, the kind of days where the sun still pretended it was summer, but the wind whispered otherwise. Ben picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Ratch." His voice had that anxious, pre-wedding hum to it. Tired, excited, distant. "I've been thinking," I began, careful, light. "You know how you and I used to always spend the night before big events together?" He laughed. "You mean how you made me sleep on your floor before high school graduation because you were convinced I'd oversleep otherwise?" "You did oversleep," I reminded him. "And I dragged your half-conscious self into your robe and made you walk." "True," he said with a grin I could hear. "What's up?" "I was wondering," I said slowly, "if maybe I could come stay with you guys for a few days before the wedding. Just to connect, help out, be there." The line went quiet for a beat, then, "Are you serious?" "Completely," he exhaled hard. "Ratch, that would be amazing. I've been feeling pulled in 20 directions and Monica's overwhelmed. Having you around would be grounding." Grounding, that's the word he used. And it caught something in my throat. I smiled, though he couldn't see it. "Then it's settled. I'll come by Thursday with wine. You still like that Malbec?" "Of course," he said. "And Rachel?" "Yeah, thanks. For everything." Thursday evening, I showed up at their townhouse with a bottle of wine in one hand and a tin of homemade shortbread in the other. I wore a soft sweater, the kind that hugged you without trying too hard, and my hair was down. Casual, safe, approachable. There was a gift bag in my car too, lavender-scented candles and a small ceramic ring dish for Monica. I'd made it myself in a pottery class last year. I was here to be kind. I was here to build bridges. Front door opened before I could knock. Ben grinned, arms open. "Come here," he said, pulling me into a hug. I breathed him in faint traces of cedar, laundry, detergent, and the life we used to share. But as soon as I stepped inside, I felt it, the shift. Monica was standing in the kitchen barefoot, holding a glass of white wine with both hands like it was something fragile. She didn't move toward me, didn't smile. "Hi, Monica," I said, keeping my tone light. "Hope you don't mind the intrusion." She raised her eyebrows slowly. "Of course not. Mi casa es su casa, right?" Her voice was breezy, but there was no warmth in it, only calculation. "I brought wine," I said, holding up the bottle. "And shortbread." She nodded, not quite looking at me. "Lovely." Ben, oblivious or pretending to be, took the tin from me and opened it with a boyish grin. "These smell like our childhood." "That's the idea." We sat on the couch for a while, talking about wedding logistics. Monica scrolled through her phone, barely offering a word unless Ben prompted her. I tried, I really did. I complimented her centerpiece ideas. I asked thoughtful questions about her dress, the venue, even the menu, despite knowing she had insisted on an artisan seafood option I was violently allergic to. I smiled, I laughed at Ben's jokes. I even gave Monica the gift bag. She took it, brows arching at the candle. "Lavender. It's supposed to be calming," I said gently. "Thought you could use a little of that this week." Her lips curled into a smile that didn't touch her eyes. How thoughtful. The evening passed in a haze of small talk and long silences. I told myself she was just overwhelmed, that some women are guarded, that maybe, just maybe, she would come around. Later, as I helped Ben clean up in the kitchen, he leaned in and whispered, "Thanks for trying." I smiled without looking at him. "We're family. I want this to work." From the hallway, I heard Monica's voice, low and sharp, on the phone. "I just don't like it," she was saying. "She's already trying to wedge herself between us." My stomach dropped. Ben didn't hear it, but I did. And while I didn't say a word, something inside me settled, not with peace, but with certainty. I had offered her kindness, and she'd pocketed it like a weapon. The guest room Monica led me to was tidy, sterile, and unmistakably temporary. A beige throw blanket folded precisely at the foot of the bed, a single flat pillow, and not a trace of personality anywhere. It reminded me of those sample rooms at furniture showrooms, designed to suggest comfort without ever truly offering it. I unpacked quietly, folding my clothes into the single drawer she'd left open. The silence of the house felt louder than usual. And colder. The next morning, I made breakfast. Nothing fancy, just scrambled eggs, toast, some cut fruit, but I wanted to do something nice. Familiar. Something Mom used to make when Ben and I were kids, when life was simple and we still believed the world would protect us. I heard Monica before I saw her. "Is that cinnamon in the eggs?" I turned from the stove. She was leaning against the doorframe in an oversized robe, face bare, arms crossed. "Just a dash," I said cheerfully. "It's something Ben always liked." She didn't respond. Just walked past me, opened the fridge, and grabbed a bottle of water. I set a plate at the table. "Made you some too." Monica glanced at it as though I'd laid out poison. "I don't really eat eggs." "Ah," I said, hiding my blush. "No problem." She didn't sit, just walked out of the kitchen, bottle in hand, muttering, "Interesting choice of hospitality." Later, Ben emerged, kissed her cheek, and inhaled the scent of the food like he hadn't eaten in days. "You made breakfast," he said, grinning. "You're spoiling me." "Just like old times," I replied, watching Monica as she passed behind him, completely silent, completely unreadable. Over the next few days, the pattern continued. When I offered to help assemble guest welcome bags, Monica handed me a list, then redid each one after I finished, saying nothing. When I asked if she needed help with her makeup trial, she blinked slowly and said, "I think we have different definitions of style." When I complimented her engagement photos, she responded with, "Well, it's hard to take a bad photo of Ben, isn't it?" At first, I laughed it off. Little digs, I told myself, a bit of control freak stress, nothing I couldn't handle, but the silence hurt worse than the sarcasm. One night, I was folding programs at the dining table while Monica and Ben watched a movie. I wasn't invited to join them. Her eyes flicked toward me once, then dismissed me. The next morning, I tried again. "Do you want to walk through the seating chart together?" I asked, standing beside her at the kitchen counter. She didn't look up. "It's already done." "Oh, I just thought. You thought you'd take over, like you do with everything," I blinked. "Excuse me," she turned to face me fully now, arms folded across her chest. "I'm not stupid, Rachel. I know what you're doing. Smiling, baking, pretending to be helpful, but I see through it." My heart raced. "I'm not pretending anything. I'm trying to support my brother." "Right," she said flatly. "Your brother, not us." Ben walked in just then, hair wet from the shower, oblivious to the frost in the room. "Everything okay?" he asked, looking between us. "Of course," Monica said, flipping her hair over her shoulder. "Rachel and I were just chatting about boundaries." I swallowed hard and forced a smile. "Yeah, we're fine." Ben kissed her cheek and poured himself a coffee. He didn't notice how tightly I held my mug. Didn't see how my hands trembled. That night, as we cleared dishes, I finally said something to him. "I'm trying, Ben," I said quietly, "but she's making it impossible." He looked up from the sink. "She's under pressure, you know how it is before weddings." "I do," I said. "But cold shoulders and thinly veiled jabs aren't stress, they're choices." Ben sighed, rinsing a plate. "Just hang in there, please, for me." I nodded, because I still believed he was worth it, that our bond could survive this. That she couldn't twist the roots of what we'd built. But later, as I passed the closed door of their bedroom, I heard Monica's voice through the wall. Low, bitter. "She doesn't know when to leave." And that was when it hit me. She wasn't just waiting for the wedding. She was waiting for me to disappear. It happened on a Tuesday morning, just before 9. I had just finished making tea when I walked into the living room and found Monica standing near the guest room door, arms crossed, gaze heavy with something darker than usual. I paused mid-step. "Morning," I said lightly, cradling my mug. She didn't answer right away. Just tilted her head and said, "Don't you have your own place to be?" I blinked, taken aback by the bluntness. "Excuse me." "You've been here almost a week," she continued, her voice calm, too calm. I assumed this was just a quick visit, not an extended stay. I set the mug down on the side table, every nerve alert now. "Is that your polite way of saying I'm not welcome?" Her mouth twitched, not quite a smile. I just don't think this is your moment, Rachel. You've had your time in Ben's life, now it's ours. I stared at her, the words hitting harder than they probably sounded on paper. Your moment, as if I was a chapter that had long overstayed its welcome. Wow, I said quietly. That's some nerve. I'm being honest, she said, brushing imaginary lint off her sweater. Something you pride yourself on, right? My breath caught, but I didn't rise to it, not yet. Do you think pushing me out makes you safer? I asked. That it proves something. She leaned against the wall, casual as ever. I think it's important for a marriage to start without distractions. Just then, Ben walked in from the hallway, hair damp from a shower, phone in hand, completely unaware of what he'd walked into. He glanced between us, sensing the tension but hesitating. Everything okay? I turned to him. Actually, Ben, maybe you can clarify something. Did you invite me to stay this week? Or was that just Monica being polite? Ben looked from me to Monica, then down at the phone in his hand like it might offer an escape route. Of course I invited you. Both of us wanted you here. Monica laughed softly. Ben, don't speak for me, he frowned. Monica, no really, she said, stepping forward. Rachel's not a child, she can handle the truth. My chest burned. I looked at Ben, really looked at him, but he didn't meet my eyes. He just stood there, torn, useless. So I gathered my calm like a coat around me. I won't stay where I'm not wanted, I said, my voice low. But let's be clear, I didn't insert myself into this family. I've always been part of it. Ben finally raised his head. Come on, both of you, we're a week out from the wedding, can we just get through this without the drama? I gave a dry laugh. Oh, I'm not the one scripting drama, I'm just reacting to the show you apparently signed up for. Silence fell again, the kind that sticks to your skin. Ben ran a hand through his hair. I have a meeting, can we just cool off and talk later? I nodded. Of course. But inside, I knew, there wouldn't be a calm talk later. Monica had drawn her line. Not with a scream or a slammed door, but with a quiet push cloaked in civility. And Ben, he'd watched her do it. And said nothing. The next morning started deceptively normal. Ben had already left for an early breakfast meeting with his groomsmen, and I was sipping coffee on the patio, still shaken by the previous day's confrontation. The house was quiet except for the occasional chirp of birds and the steady hum of traffic in the distance. For the first time in days, there was no tension in the air, until Monica started crying. It began as soft sniffles, subtle like she didn't want to be heard, but the walls in that house were thin, too thin. Then came the gasp. The loud, shaky inhale that sounded rehearsed. I paused mid-sip, heart tightening. The moment felt staged, and I didn't know why yet. When the front door opened an hour later, I heard Ben's voice before I saw him, and something about his tone made me stand. Rachel, he called from the hallway, voice uneasy. Can we talk? I met him by the stairs. He looked off, pale, like someone had dropped something cold and heavy into his hands. She's upset, he said. I didn't need to ask who she was. What happened? Ben looked away. She says you went through her things, in the guest bathroom, that you read something private, and made a comment about her cooking. I stared at him. Are you serious? She says you said it tasted like frozen grief. I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. Ben, that's absurd. His eyes searched mine, but I could already see it, the seed of doubt taking root. Ben, I said carefully, I haven't touched a single thing of hers, and I certainly haven't insulted her cooking. I've barely eaten her cooking. She was crying when I got home, he said. Said she feels unsafe around you. Unsafe, I repeated, stunned. Are you listening to yourself? He didn't respond. Just rubbed his temple like he had a migraine building behind his eyes. Where is she? I asked. In the bedroom. Good, I said, brushing past him. I found Monica seated at the edge of their bed, tear tracks glistening down her cheeks. A perfectly crumpled tissue sat delicately in her hand. Her makeup was still flawless. It all felt too curated. Why are you doing this? I asked. She looked up, startled by my directness. I don't feel safe. That's a serious thing to say, I replied, my voice even. And I need you to look me in the eye and tell me exactly what you think I did. Monica clutched her robe closer. I went into the bathroom after you. My journal was open. My things were moved, and I felt violated. I never touched your things, I said calmly. She stood, slow and deliberate. Maybe not this time, but it's the energy, Rachel. The tension. The way you look at me, like you're waiting for me to fail. I'm watching you lie, I said softly. That's the look you're seeing. She flinched just slightly, then turned her back to me. I've tried to include you, she said, but you push, you stay too long, you make everything about you. I came here to connect, to help, to give you both a home. Monica whirled around. That house, you've mentioned it 5 times. We get it. You're the generous sister, the martyr, always sacrificing. I stepped back. Not because I was afraid, but because I realized she wasn't unraveling. She was performing, and Ben, he was the intended audience. I'll be gone by tomorrow, I said. You can keep your theatrics. Just then, Ben appeared in the doorway, his face tight. Monica dropped her gaze. I'm sorry, Ben, I really tried. And there it was, the moment I knew. She'd set the trap. And he was falling straight into it. I found Ben in the backyard that evening, sitting on the edge of the deck, staring out into the tree line like he wanted to disappear into it. Didn't look up when I slid the screen door open and stepped out barefoot. Mind if I join you? I asked. He shook his head. I lowered myself beside him slowly, careful not to sit too close. The air between us was thick with everything unspoken, and I knew if I pushed too hard he'd retreat into silence, so I let the quiet stretch for a while. Let the insects buzz around us. Let the sky darken. Finally, I said, you know I'd never do what she claimed. He exhaled sharply through his nose. I don't know what to think anymore. That stung more than I wanted to admit. You don't know me by now. I do, he said. That's the problem, I know you, but I also know Monica, and she was really upset. It didn't feel fake. I turned toward him slowly. Ben, she wants me gone, you know that, right? His jaw clenched, but he didn't answer. She's been inching me out since the moment I walked through your door, I said, keeping my tone calm. Polite at first, then cold, then condescending. And now this calculated story she's spinning. You can't see it, but she's been building a narrative piece by piece. And now she's crying in your arms and saying she doesn't feel safe. From me. He dragged a hand through his hair, frustration written all over him. God, Rachel, can't you both just give each other some grace? I let out a breathless laugh. You want me to give her grace after she fabricated a scene to make me look unhinged? She said you. I know what she said, I snapped. And I'm telling you it's not true. I want to believe you. I flinched at the word, want, not do. I stood up, suddenly cold. Ben, when we were kids, you used to cry when I had to leave for school. You'd fall asleep in my bed when you had nightmares. You used to tell people I was your real-life superhero. Remember that? He looked up at me, eyes wide. Of course I do. Then how? I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. How can you even hesitate? He looked away. And that, right there, was the answer. He hesitated because he needed things to stay simple. Because believing Monica was easier than confronting what that would mean about the person he chose to marry. And because deep down, part of him believed I could be difficult, could be jealous, could be bitter, but I wasn't. I was heartbroken. This isn't about the eggs, I said finally. It's not about journals or cooking or fake tears. It's about control. And you're letting her have all of it. Ben stood now, rubbing the back of his neck. You're making this sound like some twisted conspiracy. It is twisted, I said, but it's not a conspiracy, it's personal, and it's working because you're too scared to admit something's wrong. He looked at me then, and for just a second I saw it, that flicker of recognition, the brother I knew, but he blinked and it was gone. I believe you, Ratch, he said finally, quietly. I just don't know what to do with it. And there it was, not defense. Not protection, just passive belief. Like a bandage over a wound he didn't want to look at. I stepped back, nodding slowly. You don't have to do anything, I murmured. But you should know it's going to get worse, and you don't see it. I turned and walked back inside, each step heavier than the last. Ben didn't call after me, and for the first time I wondered if he ever would. Monica's parents lived in a sprawling colonial-style home just outside of Asheville, impressive in a way that felt intentional. Every shrub was trimmed to exact symmetry, the brass fixtures on the front porch gleamed, and even the driveway stones looked polished. It was the kind of place where appearances weren't just maintained, they were weaponized. The rehearsal dinner was set in the backyard under an elaborate white tent, with tables draped in cream linens and glass lanterns flickering like tiny chandeliers. A string quartet played something slow and expensive-sounding. Everyone was dressed to impress. I wore a navy-wrapped dress and pearl studs, nothing flashy, but Monica's mother still gave me a once-over like I'd shown up in denim. Ben greeted me with a hug that was half-hearted. His eyes darted toward the house as if he were already bracing for something. Glad you came, he said. I wasn't going to miss it, I replied, even if you almost gave me every reason to. Monica appeared a few minutes later in a fitted ivory cocktail dress. She looked perfect, glossy, radiant, and chillingly pleased with herself. She moved through the crowd like royalty, accepting compliments, brushing cheeks with ants, thanking guests for coming. When she saw me, she smiled, that smooth, tight-lipped expression I'd grown used to. "Rachel," she said sweetly, "you made it." I said I would. "Of course, just making sure. We weren't sure if you'd still be involved." Ben looked at her startled but didn't speak. I didn't blink. "I go where my family is." She chuckled and turned to a group of bridesmaids without responding. I should have left then. But I stayed because Ben was still my brother. Because somewhere deep down, I was still holding on to the version of him that hadn't vanished behind his fiancée's smile. Dinner was served at a long banquet table under the tent. Candlelight glowed on the glassware. I looked around for my name card, moving slowly from seat to seat. Nothing. I made it to the end of the table, my stomach tightening. No place setting, no chair. I stood frozen, still scanning until Monica's voice cut through the quiet like a blade. "Oh," she said, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. Was there not enough room for Rachel? Everyone turned. A few people shifted awkwardly. Monica held her wineglass delicately between her fingers. "There's a folding chair in the house," she added with a smile. "Or maybe she could sit on the porch steps. It's casual enough, right?" A wave of silence rolled across the table. Ben's mouth opened, but no words came out, and that was it. That was the moment I understood there would be no saving this. No subtle redemption. No behind-closed-doors apology. So I reached into my clutch, pulled out my phone, and unlocked it slowly. I looked directly at Monica, let the quiet build just a second longer, then spoke clearly so everyone at that candlelit table would hear. "Cancel the wedding gift," I said. "The $1 million house." Her smirk faltered. "Excuse me." "The house in Black Mountain," I replied, keeping my voice calm. "The one I was transferring to you both as a wedding gift, it's off the table." A gasp broke through the guests. A fork clattered to a plate. Someone whispered, "Did she say $1 million?" Ben stood abruptly. "Wait, what house?" "The one I wanted to give you," I said, turning to face him. "A home to build your future in, a legacy, but I don't reward cruelty, Ben." Monica laughed nervously, but her voice cracked. "Rachel, this is not the time." "I didn't choose the time," I said. "You did, when you publicly humiliated me for the last time." Ben looked between us, his hands trembling. "Ratch," I turned away, because there was nothing left to say. For one long, echoing second, no one moved. Ben stared at me as if I'd just spoken in a foreign language. Monica's fingers clutched the stem of her wine glass so tightly I half expected it to shatter. Around us, the hum of conversation died into a stunned, breathless hush. Even the quartet stopped mid-measure, their bows frozen above the strings. Then Monica's voice sliced through the silence. Shrill, shrinking. "Wait, what house?" she demanded, whipping her head toward Ben. Ben turned to me, his expression unreadable. "Rachel, what are you talking about?" I took a slow breath, my hands steady despite the thunder in my chest. "The house in Black Mountain," I said clearly. "The one I bought years ago, the one I've been working for months to gift you both. I had the title transfer drawn up, the deed, everything." His mouth parted. "You were going to give us that house." "Yes," I said. "I wanted you to start your marriage with something that mattered. But this," I gestured to the long table, the missing chair, the performance Monica had just delivered, "this isn't a marriage I want my name tied to." Gasps rippled down the table. Monica stood now, her chair scraping sharply against the floor. "You're lying," she said, her voice cracking. "You're trying to ruin this moment because you're jealous, because you can't handle that someone else is the center of attention." I laughed, just once. Not bitter. Not loud, just the sound of something finally breaking loose. "I didn't say a word when you mocked my career, or when you whispered behind my back, staged tears, accused me of things I never did. I stayed silent for Ben." Monica's eyes widened, panic flickering in them. She turned to Ben. "Are you seriously letting her do this, right now, in front of everyone?" Ben didn't answer. "Ben," she said again, her voice rising, desperate. "Say something." Still nothing. That was when her hands began to tremble. Her carefully controlled mask, so flawless, so practiced, started to splinter. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered, pacing in a small circle. "You're all standing here, eating this up, like I'm the villain." Ben finally spoke, his voice low and hollow. "Why didn't you tell me, Ratch?" "I was going to surprise you at the rehearsal dinner," I said. Until the guest of honor made it clear I wasn't even welcome at the table. A ripple of murmurs broke out among the guests. Someone near the end whispered, "She's the one who gave up the house." Another voice, "I thought they bought it together." Monica's cheeks flushed deep red. She was unraveling now, visibly and publicly. Her hands gestured wildly as she sputtered, "You think this stunt makes you noble. You're just bitter because you're alone, because no one picked you." It was a knife, a clean, practiced one, but she aimed it carelessly. Ben flinched, and I saw it, the flicker. The shame, the dawning recognition that the woman he was about to marry had just humiliated his sister, again, in front of everyone he loved. I held his gaze. This isn't about being picked, it's about respect. And you watched her strip mine every last bit of it out of this relationship and you said nothing. His mouth opened, closed, and then with a trembling voice he said, "Monica, did you leave her out of the seating chart?" I didn't think she was still coming," Monica shot back. "After everything, I thought she would have the decency not to make a scene." Ben stared at her. "You planned this." "I didn't," she cried. "Ben, I was protecting our day." But no one was listening anymore. Monica stood alone, breath shallow, mascara starting to smudge. Every guest had seen it, had heard it. Not just the insult, but the reaction. The show, the ugly truth beneath the polish. And I had nothing left to prove. So I lifted my clutch, turned to Ben one last time and said, "You can keep the wedding, I'm keeping my dignity." And I walked away from that perfect table, from the flickering candles and the ruined facade, with my spine straight and my head held high. Behind me, silence gave way to stunned voices, and one by one, the cracks started to spread. The fallout didn't take long. By the next morning, Monica had gone into full damage control mode. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some from extended relatives who hadn't even been at the dinner, others from mutual friends offering awkward sympathy. But what I hadn't expected was Monica showing up at my studio. Alone. I'd barely stepped out of my car when I saw her pacing by the front door, heels clicking across the sidewalk like little warnings. Her smile was brittle. "Rachel." I didn't answer. Just unlocked the door and stepped inside, leaving it open behind me. If she wanted a scene, she'd have to keep it quiet. She followed me in. "Look, I know how it looked last night, but you caught me off guard." I panicked. I dropped my bag by the counter. "You humiliated me." "I made a mistake," she said quickly. "We were both emotional, things escalated, but I want to fix this for Ben." "For Ben," I repeated, narrowing my eyes. "Not for me." She hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, for all of us." I tilted my head. "Then why are you really here, Monica?" She shifted, eyes flicking to the door. I don't want this to fall apart. Not over something so dramatic. Please, talk to him. Tell him it was just nerves or a misunderstanding." "He saw it for himself." Her composure slipped. "He still listens to you. And maybe that's why you've hated me since the moment we met." She stepped forward now, her voice sharper. "You've always had too much control. Everyone loves Rachel. Generous Rachel. You walk in with your calm voice and your sentimental stories and they all melt. You think that house was a gift. It was bait." I laughed, low and bitter. "And you still bit." Her hand twitched at her side and for a moment she looked like she might scream. But then a knock, sharp, urgent. The studio door swung open. Ben, he was out of breath, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes red-rimmed. "Rachel," he said, then to Monica, "Go home." She turned to him, stunned. "What?" I said, "Go home." His voice was steady now, stronger than I'd heard in days. "Ben, I know what you were doing." He looked at her like he was finally seeing the whole picture. "You showed up here after everything, after slapping me in front of Ryan this morning." I blinked. "You what?" Monica's eyes widened, but it was too late. "She lost it," Ben said. "In front of my cousin, screamed, accused me of siding with you, and then she hit me." Silence. Monica's chest heaved. I didn't mean to." "Don't," Ben said. "Don't even try." She looked at me once, eyes pleading, but I wasn't the one who needed convincing. Ben stepped aside, nodding toward the door. "This is over, the wedding's off." And just like that, the performance ended. She walked out, shoulders stiff, not saying another word. When the door clicked shut, Ben looked at me. I should have listened sooner. I studied his face, tired, regretful, but clearer than before. "You saw it when you needed to," I said. "That's enough." The quiet after the storm was almost disorienting. A week had passed since the rehearsal dinner fallout and the cancelled wedding. The event hall had been refunded, the florist repurposed the arrangements for a local hospital, and Monica had vanished into the silence she'd once wielded so expertly. Ben and I hadn't spoken much since that morning in my studio. A few short texts. Nothing heavy. I knew he needed space, not from me but from everything. From the whirlwind he'd let sweep him off course. So when he finally showed up on my porch one chilly Thursday afternoon, hands in his coat pockets, eyes full of something like remorse, I was ready. He sat across from me on the porch swing without saying a word. The air smelled faintly of pine and chimney smoke, the same air we grew up breathing. "I came to say I'm sorry," he said at last. I looked at him, really looked at him. "For what?" "For all of it," he said quietly. "For letting her twist things, for standing there and watching you get humiliated, for not being the brother you deserved." I let the words settle between us before I answered. "You were scared," I said. "You wanted it all to be simple." He nodded. "It's not." "No," I said gently, "but that's the beauty of it, the things that matter usually aren't." He smiled faintly. "I miss when we were kids, when things made sense. We were just better at pretending back then." He laughed softly, but it was honest. I stood and went inside, returning with 2 mugs of tea and a plate of shortbread, his favorite since childhood. He blinked at it, smiled again, and this time the smile stayed. "Someone else is coming by," I said after a moment casually. "Just for coffee." He raised a brow. "A friend? An old one," I said. "Leela, from college. We reconnected recently." As if on cue, a soft knock came at the front door. Ben stood instinctively, but I waved him back down. "I'll get it." When I opened the door, Leela stepped in, her scarf half undone, cheeks flushed from the wind. "Hey," she said with a bright smile. I gestured toward the porch. "We're out there, come meet someone." Ben stood as we approached, ever polite, and extended his hand. "Ben," he said. "Leela," she replied, her hand fitting into his. And just like that, the air shifted. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or violins. Just gently. We sat, we laughed, we let the weight lift a little. And as the sun began to set over the mountains in the distance, I looked between them, my brother, and the woman who, without trying, already seemed to bring a kind of peace Monica never had. "Let's build new things from here," I said aloud, mostly to myself. But Ben heard. And this time he nodded. 1 year later, the garden looked exactly as I'd once imagined it, except everything was different and finally beautifully right. It was a warm afternoon in early fall. The leaves had just begun their slow golden surrender, drifting lazily from the trees that lined the back of my property in Black Mountain. Sunlight danced across the patio stones, the air crisp with the promise of change. Laughter floated like music across the yard, and this time, it felt earned. Ben stood beneath the arch of climbing white roses, wearing a soft gray suit and a nervous, hopeful smile. His hands were clasped in front of him, his eyes locked forward toward Leela, who was walking slowly down the aisle, hand in hand with her father, wearing a simple ivory dress and bare feet that brushed across the grass. And me? I stood beside the arbor, holding the small velvet box with their rings, my heart full in a way it had never been before. No drama. No masks, no performance, just love. Quiet, steady, true. After the ceremony, as guests gathered for drinks under the twinkle lights strung from oak to oak, I pulled Ben aside. "I have something for you," I said. He blinked. "You already gave a toast, and you organized half the wedding." "Not that," I said, reaching into my bag. I pulled out a thin envelope with his name in my handwriting. He stared at it for a moment before opening it. His eyes scanned the paper inside, just a few lines, signed and notarized. "Rachel," his voice caught. "You're giving us the house." "I told you once," I said. "It was always meant for your family, and now you've found the right person to build that with." He looked up at me, stunned. "Even after everything?" "Especially after everything," I replied. His arms wrapped around me before I could say more, holding on tighter than he had in years. Over his shoulder I caught Leela's eye. She smiled, that quiet, knowing kind of smile. And I smiled back, deeply content. Later, as the sun dipped low and music played across the lawn, guests began to gather around a small fire pit. Glasses clinked, children chased each other barefoot, and stories were traded like old family secrets. I sat on the porch steps with a mug of cider in hand, watching it all unfold. The house glowed softly behind me, full of light and the scent of cinnamon and pine. It was no longer just mine. It was finally what it was meant to be, a home. Ben came over and sat beside me, his tie loosened, cheeks flushed from dancing. "Do you ever think about how close we were to getting it all wrong?" he asked. I nodded, "But we didn't." He glanced back at the party, then at me. "You saved me from her." "No," I said. "You saved yourself. I just stopped pretending everything was fine." He nodded, thoughtful. As the stars began to blink to life overhead, I leaned back and breathed in the night. Some betrayals try to bury you. Others teach you how to rise. Monica lost everything she didn't deserve. And Ben, he finally built the life he did. Where are you watching from? Tell me in the comments, and let me know. Have you ever had to walk away from someone so the truth could finally speak for itself?